Was it from this year?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Oh, there it is.
It says we're live now.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. All right. Good morning, everybody.
Oh, actually, it doesn't look like it's on the FWP site
Hey,
yet.
Heather, we're up.
Charlie, is it on the site yet, though? I'm not seeing it. Let's maybe wait just another sec.
Yeah, I'm refreshing the website. It's not.
Yeah, Missy's now taking it from YouTube and putting it onto the site, so it'll take just another sec or two.
Thanks, Dylan.
Hey, somebody's got to change their telephone number.
All right, I'll check it.
Thanks, Charlie.
That 688 or no, the 883-289 or 889 is public to everyone now.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
Heather, we need to figure out who's got the 889 phone number or 888.
It's Dale.
No, mine's not 888.
Oh, 2889.
I don't think I'm coming in on that. Should be 2888. I mean, it could be, but
That's
we're in a.
really up to. Okay, so yeah, Charlie, you're going to have to rename, now that you're the owner, you're going to have to rename these telephone numbers as they come in. Otherwise, everybody's going to see the whole thing now.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, now we're live on the FWP website.
Great.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Dylan.
You guys have a good one.
Thanks,
Pat, I owe
Pat.
you. Thank you.
Good.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Grizzly Bear Advisory Council meeting discussion on the role of hunting. We apologize for the technical difficulties this morning. Thanks for joining us. What we'll do in order to give people time to log on to YouTube and continue to refresh their screen, we'll go ahead and do a roll call of council members and support team. And I'm going to do my best to go in alphabetical order. And if you could just introduce yourself in a sentence or two about who you are, and then I'll direct public to the website so that they can see your full bio. So Annie, we'll start with you.
Good morning. My name's Annie Shusky. I live in East Glacier Park, Montana. I work in the Browning Public School Districts for half of the year, and then I work in Alaska, Montana, and Churchill, Manitoba the other half of the year as a naturalist guide.
Thanks, Annie. Brett, morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Brett Barney. I'm the wildlife manager for Sunlight Ranch Company. I'm from Wyola, Montana, and we have properties over by Red Lodge, Montana. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Caroline.
Hi, Caroline Bird, Bozeman, Montana.
Thanks, Caroline. Good morning. Chad, good morning.
Good morning, Chad Bauer, Municipal Manager for Republic Services. I am currently sheltered in Missoula, Montana. Normally I get to travel to the beautiful state, but I haven't for 4 weeks, so here I am.
Thanks for being here. Chuck, good morning.
Morning. I'm Chuck Rohde, and I manage a forest products company in the Flathead, northwest corner of Montana, between Columbia Falls and Whitefish. And we manage about 40,000 acres of our own lands that has considerable amount of grizzly bear population. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Cole.
Morning, Cole Mannix. My family ranches in the Blackfoot Valley of Western Montana. I live in Helena and work for the Western Landowners Alliance.
Thanks, Cole. Darren, morning.
Good morning. This is Darren Voss from Havre, Montana. I'm the department head of the Research Centers for Montana State University. Here is a private citizen. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Darren. Greg.
Greg Schock. I'm from St. Ignatius. I used to have a dairy farm up here until a year ago, and now I just raise cattle and hay and grain, and heart of the Grizzly Bears, lived with them for 25 years, and that's about it.
Thanks, Greg. Heath, morning.
Good morning. Heath Martinell, live down in Dale, Montana, southwest corner of the state, and happy to be here this morning.
I'm not doing well with the alphabet. Aaron, I skipped you. Sorry.
That's all right.
You're on my list.
Aaron Edge. I'm in Missoula, Montana. I work for a national nonprofit, Defenders of Wildlife. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Sorry about that. Jonathan.
Good morning. I'm Jonathan Bauer. I'm in the Swan Valley of Montana. I work for Swan Valley Connections. I'm working with natural resource conservation and education.
Thanks, Jonathan. Cameron.
Yeah, good morning. Cameron Kelsey, family owns and operates a guest ranch in southwest Montana, south of Big Sky. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Cameron. Kristen.
Kristen's internet has
I
dropped.
got it.
Oh, you got it.
I'm here. Yeah, my internet keeps dropping out spontaneously. Hi, I'm Kristen Kipp. I live on the northern part of the Rocky Mountain Front on the Blackfeet Reservation. My family has a cattle ranch, and that's about it. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Kristen. Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence Grossfield. I'm a cattle rancher in south central Montana out of Big Timber.
Michelle. You're on mute, Michelle.
Okay, good morning. I'm Michelle Dietrich, and I am from Hamilton, Montana, and happy to be here.
Thanks, Michelle. Nick.
Hi, I'm Nick Jivak, and I'm the Conservation Director for the Montana Wildlife Federation, and I live and work in Helena.
Thanks, Nick. Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin King. I am the director of the Yak Valley Forest Council. I live in Yak, Montana, and I live within the Cabinet Yak ecosystem.
Thanks, Robin. Trina.
Good morning, Trina Jo Bradley. I live on the southern end of the Blackfeet Reservation where my family and I raise cattle, and I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Trina. And so for the public logging in, if you came in sort of midway in the introductions, again, you can find the council member bios on the Grizzly Bear Advisory Council website. Want to also acknowledge my co-facilitator, Sean Johnson. I'm Heather Stokes. We're with the University of Montana at the Center for Natural Resources and Environmental Policy, facilitating the council meetings. And we've got the support team with us as well. And I think I've got everybody who has logged on this morning. We've got Charlie Sperry with FWP, Jody Bush and Hillary Cooley with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Also with FWP is Cecily Costello, Bill Shank, Ken McDonald, Gary Bertoli, Rich Harris, Vivica Krauser, Dylan Tabish, Mark Haraldson is with USGS. We've got Craig Glazier with Wildlife Services, Chris Savage and Scott Jackson with US Forest Service, Sarah Silty helping take minutes. Thank you, Sarah. And Del Becker with Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for being such a support to the council, both with content and technical expertise, being available for questions. Welcome to the public. Thank you for logging on. Again, apologies for the technical delays in getting started. Hope you've been able to find different documents on the website. What I will do is a quick walkthrough on the website. If you are on the website right now, you'll see the YouTube link. You'll also see an engage and comment button, which is where we encourage you to put any questions or comments, including during this presentation. We've got Dylan Tabish monitoring those questions. And what we hope to do is take a few of those questions that will help inform the council deliberations closer to the end of this meeting today. And again, if we don't address your question today, the council members have access and do read all the questions and comments that do come in. We also have a number of documents here. You'll see the April 9th date on the upcoming meetings block. And we've got the agenda, which is the first document, along with a number of other documents. These are not necessarily all inclusive of documents that might be helpful around this topic, but these are documents that were shared by the presenters that will be possibly referenced during this presentation, including the 3 presentations are listed on here as well. So again, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to acknowledge that the sensitivity of this topic around the role of hunting. I really appreciate everyone logging in and everyone's interests. We've had a number of comments come in through the public portal, and so I want to thank the public for sharing your comments and your feedback. And again, the council members have access to this and have been diligently and thoughtfully reading those comments for consideration in their deliberations. We know that with having 18 council members representing citizens of Montana from all geographies and various different interest groups and experiences, that's remains true for this topic, that the issue of hunting and the role of hunting, there are a wide variety of values represented and experiences represented. And what I want to encourage everybody as we have this conversation is to continue what we've been doing around being really respectful, around dialogue and around questions. And I encourage the public to do the same. One of the things that I've been really impressed and honored to be a part of is how invested council members have been in terms of wanting to hear each other and share their own experiences. And this conversation remains the same to that and true to that. And in preparing for this meeting today, council members expressed wanting to hear a variety of experiences within Montana and outside of Montana. We're really going to be focusing this conversation on the charge of the council that is mentioned in the executive order. And for the public, the executive order is also on the website. And as per the governor's executive order, this topic, the role of hunting, in addition to the other 6 topics, is really around focusing discussion on how the role of hunting may or may not help the role of conservation and management for grizzly bears within the state of Montana. So on that note, just a reminder, and I'm going to do my best to repeat this. And so for those that logged on initially, I apologize for the repetition, but I want to make sure that the public has access and awareness for all the documents that we're going to be referencing today. So again, please, if you've got questions or comments, use the engage and comment button. We have Dylan Tabish, who is going to be monitoring those comments and questions coming in, and we'll do our best to address some of those today in the meeting. And those that we don't get to, I assure you that council members will have access to all of those. And again, the documents that will be referenced today are also on the website under the agenda column. So thank you to the presenters for getting those documents to all of us ahead of time so that the council members and the public had access to them earlier this week. I'd also like to thank the support team members. In particular, we've got Ken McDonald and Rich Harris, Cecily Costello, and Bill Shank for putting together a briefing for the council that was on the history and the role of hunting within Montana to provide an overview. It's certainly not inclusive of everything that's gone on, but in terms of how to manage the information coming in and really consolidate the briefing that FWP put together is a nice summary of that history, along with the laws and policies and statutes that are currently in place. So with that, I want to share on the agenda, in talking with the presenters, we asked them to focus on 3 guiding questions. And again, these questions are on the agenda, and it's really around how do values influence the role of hunting grizzly bears? What is the role of hunting in Montana, Alaska, and British Columbia? And the reason that we focused on Alaska and British Columbia is those are the presenters we've got today, and we thought that those would be applicable and transferable to the experiences and landscape of Montana. And how does the role of hunting contribute to conserving and managing grizzly bears? So with that, we'll start with presentation from Ken McDonald. Again, Ken McDonald is with Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks. He's the Wildlife Division Administrator. He oversees wildlife management, wildlife habitat, hunter access programs for Montana Fish and Wildlife. And you can follow his presentation again by downloading it on the website. So Ken, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for giving me some time this morning. What I thought I would do is sort of talk about the role and structure of hunting in Montana if we were to have a grizzly bear hunting season. As we've talked about quite a bit leading up to this discussion, the whether or not there's a hunting of grizzly bears really is a social and a value-driven issue. From a biological standpoint, it's a management tool that's available to us once bears are delisted. Whether we utilize that tool or not is, it's a bigger question that the public generally needs to weigh in on. A couple of things I wanted to make clear is people think, or a lot of times hunting is portrayed as it's going to be, just a free-for-all. We're just going to go out there and whack bears indiscriminately. And what I hope I can show today is with our example from the Yellowstone is that if we did ever have a hunting season again on a grizzly bear population, it would be very tightly managed and lots of safeguards in place to make sure we don't get back to a point where bears have the need to be listed again.
Oop, I think somebody accidentally shared their screen.
Yeah, mine just went crazy.
Okay, we're good.
Not sure how that happened. Anyway, so I'm going to I sent out a PowerPoint. I cleaned it up real black and white just so it didn't take up a lot of memory for you guys or me. And I'm just going to kind of run through that using Yellowstone kind of as an example of how hunting might be managed and might be regulated and what we did leading up to delisting of Yellowstone. So it started out with what is the delisted entity, and a lot of this is review from our first information download we did on your first meeting. But we have what's the delisted entity is a distinct population segment. That's the large outer boundary on that figure on the map on what I sent out. Within that distinct population segment, there's a demographic monitoring area. That demographic monitoring area covers most of the distribution of bears, but is a lot smaller than the overall population segment that would be delisted. The importance of that demographic monitoring area is that's where bears counted and mortalities are counted. So that demographic monitoring area is important because, as we'll talk about in a minute, there's certain criteria that we've committed to maintaining, and it's based on the bears in that demographic monitoring area and mortalities of bears in that monitoring area. And if anybody has questions along the way, speak up or raise your hand, and I'll look for Heather to monitor if somebody's raising their hand.
Yeah.
So with the Yellowstone delisting a couple years ago, there was an agreed upon commitment to manage around what was the average population size of the bears between 2002 and 2014, which is when the monitoring data indicates the population kind of leveled out and stabilized. There's some information on the mortality estimator that's used, and that's one of the issues that's still pending out there is what's the best way to count the bears. But basically the delisting rule included a condition that before delisting can occur, there needed to be a conservation strategy in place that talks about how bears will be managed and will be ensure that we don't go back to a condition where they need to be listed again. And it also required that states have in place hunting season frameworks, or basically regulations. So we put together regulations to demonstrate, to meet this requirement and demonstrate how exactly we would manage hunting if we were to have a season. Part of what we included and agreed to got amended into the recovery plan, and it's basically to maintain that population basically at 674 or more bears, and then included a sliding scale where if you're way above that, you have more available mortality. If you're below that, it tightens up. And so there's a table in what I sent that kind of identifies the what that sliding scale is. And so if you have that or follow along, it talks about mortality rates for females, independent females, for independent males, and then for young. And so we'll just look at the female row. If the overall population in that demographic monitoring area is less than 674 bears or equal to, then the total mortality rate can't exceed 7.6%. If the population's between 675 and 747, the female mortality rate could go up to 9%. And if it's over 747, the mortality rate can go up to 10%. So the main thing to get out of this is there's without even talking about hunting, there's just a management of mortality to make sure that we don't go below 674 bears. And again, as the population within that demographic monitoring area gets larger, there's more mortality availability. And
I'm just going to interrupt you just really quickly.
Yeah.
The title of the PDF that Ken is referencing is the Role and Structure of Hunting FWP Summary. It's the third from the bottom in terms of the documents listed on the public site. And you're referring to slide number 5. So as you're going through these slides, could you just indicate which slide you're on, please?
Sure. Thanks. So again, the before they're even talking about hunting, there's already structure in place to ensure mortality is managed and limited to keep the population from going below 674. Going to the next slide 6. One of the things that is different than most hunting management is this population is shared among 3 states, Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, and therefore hunting mortality, hunting and mortality have to be regulated on a 3-state basis to make sure that the population as a whole is managed within those guidelines. And so we developed a 3-state memorandum of agreement with Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana that describes how each of those states collectively will manage that population and coordinate management at an ecosystem scale to make sure that recovery is maintained. And this was important so that, you know, if one state, if all 3 states said we're going to use all of the maximum mortality, we'd obviously put the population into a tailspin pretty quick. So we don't do this for deer or elk or most other critters, but with grizzly bears, because it's so tightly regulated, this was an important component. And that memorandum agreement was signed by each of the state's Fish and Wildlife commissions and their directors. So again, all 3 states are on board with collectively managing and collaboratively managing population, including any kind of a hunting season. So going to the next slide, just the real key to that MOA was how we would manage the numbers on an annual basis to make sure that we're all following the guidelines in the MOA and the conservation strategy and